Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Marine Wisdom. Previously, we saw the sections from the upper engine room all the way till the middle engine room, and today we're going to be continuing from the middle engine room platform till the end of the engine room, that is the lowest engine room platform, that is the bottom platform. So, starting off with the purifier room, and for all the upcoming fourth engineers, please pay attention as you will definitely find this useful. So we'll start off with draining the settling and the service tanks every day, and especially just before changing over to a new tank. So if you're using ultra low sulfur or biofuel, whatever you have on board, it's a good practice to drain those tanks 2-3 days before you're going to be using those tanks so that they're free of water. And there's a special technique to even drain these tanks. I know you'll find it funny, something as easy as draining, but there is a way to do it, and I learned it the hard way. So you see this valve, this red handle, so you just press it down and the oil or the water is drained out depending on the quantity. Now if you press it too hard, you will not be able to see any water coming out. So there's a trick to do it. If there's not that much water present in the tank and you still want to drain it, you just got to press it down slightly and you will see the water coming out. And I was actually scolded in one of my contracts, in my first contract actually, because I was new and I didn't know how to properly drain it. So the second engineer actually asked me to drain the water and I pressed it too hard and I could only see oil coming. And I was like, "Sir, there's no water present." And he was like, "That's not how it's done." And then he showed me the correct way. So that's how it's done. Moving on to the purifier, we will check the sludge discharge port as is shown in the picture, this one. And depending on the make of your purifier, this sludge discharge port can be elsewhere. For Westphalia purifiers, it's on the top. So all you have to do is loosen the cap and then you can just access this port, and you can just look through with a flashlight if there's any oil leaking. And a very, very, very important disclaimer is you should only check this discharge port if our purifier is not desludging and not ejecting, because if you open this port while the purifier is desludging, you'll have hot oil splashing on your face, and then it's actually very dangerous. So always make it a point to see on the panel what is the cycle going on. If it's desludging or ejecting, then do not check this. So that's very important. Yeah, and if it's leaking, you will see oils being sprayed inside the port, and if that's happening, then it means that the bowl is leaking. So look out for the same. Moving on, we will check and adjust the purifier back pressure, and this value is important to maintain the position of the interface inside. So this is our pressure gauge, and this is actually placed in our clean oil outlet, and that's why it is known as the back pressure, because it is at the outlet. And depending on your make, the value varies, and for Westphalia purifiers we were asked to maintain about 2 bar. So there's a valve in front of it, and you can just adjust it, open it slightly or close it to adjust the back pressure. If you close it, then your back pressure will increase, and if you open it, your back pressure will decrease. Then moving on to the next point, it's also a good practice to check the feed inlet temperature, see if the temperature controller is maintaining the temperature. You will check the RPM. You can also manually desludge the purifier from the panel, and this is a good practice. Desludge it and see if the current is going high, because momentarily the current is supposed to go high when the purifier is desludging. That means that it is operating correctly. Then it is also a good practice to check the pressure of the purifier preheater. So depending on your ship, just ask your seniors what the recommended value is. For my ship, we had a maximum value of 1.5 bar that we maintained for the purifier preheaters. Moving on. Just checks the condition of the lagging throughout the room. Check for leaks on the lagging. And the picture that you see here is the main engine fuel oil inlet filter. So there are two of them, so that one of them can be changed over if we have to clean the other one. And we will check for the differential pressure. And the way that is done is, I'll just zoom in. This is the differential pressure gauge, and when the differential pressure is high, this part is red and this part becomes red, indicating that the filter is choked. So we must change over to the other filter and clean this filter. So that is the indication. It becomes red, indicating that our filter is choked and needs to be cleaned. Moving on. Moving on to the cooler room. So in the picture you see the LT cooler, the low temperature water cooler, and any increase in the seawater pressure drop across the cooler indicates fouling of the filter in the seawater inlet side or the inline filter. So basically, if there's a high pressure drop between the seawater inlet and the seawater outlet, that indicates that our inline filter needs to be cleaned, and ideally this is done after every long voyage. Moving on, check the seals of all the high temperature and low temperature pumps, so the HTLT pumps. Check the mechanical seal if it's leaking water. Check the motor enclosure for any signs of overheating by hand, as is shown in the picture here. And it's also a good practice to carry the infrared gun for temperature monitoring. So you don't have to do it every day, but say like once in 2-3 days, it's a good idea in your night rounds. Just carry it in your pocket and point it at the motor enclosures at different places to see if there's any unusual temperature rise. Moving on to the lower engine room platform. Now in the picture that you can see the marine growth prevention system, and we will first check if the correct sea chest is in use. So we all know that at port we need to use the high sea chest, as we do not need muddy water entering. And at sea we use the low sea chest because we don't want to lose suction if the ship is rolling and pitching, and we are using a high sea chest, then we might momentarily lose suction, and that's not very good for the pumps. So we will check the current for the low and the high sea chest if it is as specified in the manual, and we'll also see if the correct sea chest is in use. Then we'll check for the bilges, all four, that is the mid, port, starboard, and aft, if they are clean and if they are not, if the level of the water is not too high or overflowing. And if that is happening, we will examine what machinery is leaking by tracing the pipe to that machinery. So this is important. And if it's too high, just empty the bilges to the waste, to the bilge holding tank. Moving on to our intermediate bearings, and my ship had 3 of them. So depending on the size of your shaft, we have, so for a longer shaft we'll have more intermediate bearings. So just check the oil level. This is just a dipstick. It's just a dipstick that you can use to measure the oil. And also check the flow through the side glass for the intermediate bearings. So this part that you see, that is your side glass. This is your side glass, and this is what it looks like zoomed in. So just check if the oil is flowing. Just carry a flashlight and point it at the side glass to check if the oil is actually flowing, through the bearings. Moving on to a shaft earthing system. Now usually this is the electrotechnical officer, or the ETO, is also responsible for this, and he is also monitoring, but it's a good practice for you also to have a look at this during our rounds. Checks the voltage level, and on my ship we had to keep it below 50 millivolts if it was around 50 millivolts and above, that means the carbon brushes had to be cleaned. So just ask your ETO what is the level, the safe value under which it should be kept. And if it's too high, just tell your ETO. That means our carbon brushes have to be cleaned. Also check the temperature of the bearing, our intermediate bearings. So there's a temperature gauge over here, and there's bearing temperature, and there's also remote reading, so you can just cross check if the remote reading in our ECR matches our local reading. So thanks for watching, guys. That's our end of the series for the checklist for the engine room rounds, and I hope you found this useful. For those of you who are new, Marine Wisdom is an initiative started for mariners to help them clear their certificate of competency exams faster. We have an app with all recorded lectures. We offer live lectures on Zoom. We offer Q&A sessions. There is a structured list of videos on our application, and there's loads of other helpful stuff. So if you guys want to enroll, please reach out to us on Instagram and leave a comment below, and we will help you do the same. Thank you. Fair winds and following seas.